Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Grafton Select Board's regularly scheduled meeting for November 17, 2020. Open the meeting at 7:03 p.m. As a preliminary matter, my name is Peter Carlson. I'm the chair of the Town of Grafton Select Board. Please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on this agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I please call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mr. Fazio.
Fazio, present.
Mr. Often.
Often present.
Ms. Roy.
Roy, present.
Mr. Frisbee.
Frisbee, present.
Peter Carlson's present. Staff, when I please call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Temporary Town Administrator, Mr. Terenzini.
He was just in the attendees. I think he's signing out and coming back.
Oh, I can put him in here if he needs to. He's on his way in. Okay. For the public hearing, just to call out Jay Lucier from National Grid.
Yeah, I'm here.
Vincent Lagudis, did I say it right, Vincent?
Vinny usually doesn't attend.
Okay, I just saw his name here. Great. Mr. Passo,
Yes, I'm here.
Lakeisha, Papu
Papasakas here.
Pasakis, thank you.
You can say
very-
Carpenter, it's easier.
Thank you, Lakeisha. John Allen? I think I just saw him in here, but can you respond on the affirmative? Yep, okay. Mr. Bob Berger? Mr. Andy DeShane?
Andy DeShane here.
Chief Crapo?
Chief Crapo here.
And Jen Anderson?
Anderson here.
Thank you. All right. Good evening. This open meeting of the Town of Grafton Select Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of the public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted to the town's website at www.grafton-ma.gov, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment for a public hearing. For this meeting, the Select Board is convening via Zoom meeting as posted as the town's website for identifying how the public may join. Please note that the meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that people may be able to see you and that take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you may broadcast may be captured by the recording and viewable by the public. All supporting materials have been provided to members of this body are available at the town's website, and when final minutes are posted, unless otherwise noted, the public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I, the chair, note otherwise. Just some basic ground rules, please. As chair, I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will go down the list of members, inviting each of you to provide any comments, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. And for any responses, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. Finally, each vote this evening will be taken via roll call vote. All right. So first up on our agenda this evening, good evening, everybody. We have a public hearing for a poll petition for Meadowbrook Road. If I could have the board consider a motion to open the public hearing for Meadowbrook Road poll petition.
I move the board vote to open the public hearing for the Meadowbrook Road poll petition for National Grid.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those by roll call, please. Mr. Often,
Often, aye.
Mr. Fazio,
DeFazio, I.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, I.
Mr. Prisby,
Frisbee, aye.
Peter Carlson, aye. Declare the public hearing open. If I may ask the clerk to read back the legal notice, please, for the record.
The select board will hold a public hearing on the request of National Grid to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way. Meadowbrook Road. Install one JO pole on Meadowbrook Road, beginning at a point approximately 958 feet north of the center line of the intersection of Upton Street and continuing approximately 20 feet in an easterly direction. National Grid is installing a 40C2 pole as a junction pole for a new primary line up the driveway 15 Meadowbrook Road to feed 2 new house lots, and to lay and maintain underground lateral cables and wires in the above or intersection public way for the purpose of making connections with such poles and buildings as each of said petitioners may desire for distributing purposes. The public hearing will be held on November 17th, 2020, and will take place via Zoom. The meeting link will be posted in the November 17th agenda. The Selectmen's meeting begins at 7 p.m. The purpose of this hearing is to provide an opportunity for public comment, and anyone wishing to may attend via Zoom.
Thank you very much. This evening, we have representatives from National Grid. If you would like to come on board and just give an overview of what you're asking for tonight, and then we'll open it up to comments and questions from the public.
Sure. Hi, this is Jay from National Grid. We're looking to install pole 6-50, which, if you have the petition application, is shown on Meadowbrook Road to the right side. Mr. Bob Flynn, I believe, who lives at 15 Meadowbrook Road, has sold a couple of his lots. We're building 2 new houses on those lots. So this pole would be 2 feet, a new pole line that's going to head up Meadowbrook. It's going to be called Flynn Way, I guess, per the way it's deeded right now. But that would be as the junction pole to feed that new line for the 2 new houses.
All right, thank you. Does the board have any questions? Does any member from the public have any questions or comments? This is a public hearing. If you would like, please raise your hand in the attendees area and I can promote you to a panelist to ask your question. In the meantime, before we do that, we did receive a memo from Paul Canoyer recommending the approval of the application from National Grid for the installation of pole 6-50 at approximately 15 Meadowbrook Road. He stated his approval in his endorsement of this. All right, I'm not seeing anybody come in. If there's no other questions or comments from the board or the public, I can entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I move the board vote to close the public hearing for a Meadowbrook Road pole petition.
Great, thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to close the public hearing? Seeing none, all those by roll call, please. Mr. Often,
Often, aye.
Mr. Fazio,
DeFazio, I.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, I.
Mr. Prisby,
Frisbee, aye.
Peter Carlson, aye. Clear the motion carried. Public hearing is closed. All right, this evening in front of us, the select board, we have a motion for consideration to either approve or deny the poll petition as presented for Meadowbrook Road. If there isn't any other questions about this, I can entertain a motion.
I move the board vote to approve the poll petition as presented for Meadowbrook Road.
Second.
Motion made and seconded for the poll petition approval. Do I have any discussion? Seeing none, all those by roll call, please. Mr. Often,
Often, aye.
Mr. Fazio,
DeFazio, I.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, I.
Mr. Prisby,
Frisbee, aye.
Peter Carlson, aye. All right, Jay, I think you're all set. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, you too.
All right, great. So this evening, we had select board appointment for Together We Can. We have Lakeisha here as well as Deborah Trapasso, who's been a longtime member of Together We Can. Deb, did you want to give us an overview and introduce Lakeisha to the board for appointment?
Hi, this is Debbie Trapasso. Lakeisha had submitted her name to be a volunteer for the town of Grafton, and her name was forwarded to us as a possibly good fit for her. So we invited her to attend our meeting last month, which was the first available for her to meet us via Zoom. And we didn't scare her off, and she decided that she would like to join our committee. She is new to town, and she has children in the Grafton Public Schools. And she thought that this would be a good way for her to get to know more about her community. And so we welcome her, and we look forward to working with her.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Lakeisha. Thank you for coming out tonight. Do you want to give an overview, a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I have now lived in town a little bit over a year. I have one student at the high school who's a junior, and I have one student who is a 7th grader at the middle school. Yeah, I just figured it would be a great way to kind of segue and get more involved in the community in town. My older son has been a student since mid-year last year, because prior to that he was at boarding school. So yeah, I just felt it was a really good way to try to get more involved and just see what's going on and give back at the same time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's a pleasure to meet you, Lakeisha.
you.
Does any board members have any questions, comments? Okay, I think at this point I can entertain a motion for appointment.
I move the board vote to appoint Lakeisha Carpenter Paputakis to the Together We Can Committee for the 2020-21 fiscal year as a parent of the Grafton Public School student representative.
Second.
I have a motion made in second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All those by roll call, please. Mr. Often,
Often, aye.
Ms. DeFazio,
Fazio, I.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, I.
Mr. Prisby,
Frisbee, aye.
Peter Carlson, I declare the motion carried. Welcome, Lakeisha. Thank you very much for your time. And Mr. Passo, thank you very much for your time. I know you've been doing this for years and it's greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for coming out tonight.
All right, thank you for
Thank you.
welcoming us to tonight's meeting.
Our pleasure.
you.
Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you both.
Well,
Bye.
you as well.
All right. Next up here, I had a last minute presentation, but I think this one really deserves some attention. John Allen was able to attend tonight's meeting, and we wanted to kick off the shop local, but I wanted to give Mr. Allen, who is our economic development coordinator here for the town of Grafton, the floor to give a quick presentation. And go ahead, John, the floor is yours. We can't hear you, John. Your audio is still can't hear you, John. We still can't hear you. Nothing yet.
Happens if you log out and log back in again.
Yeah, John, that's a good idea. Why don't you do that? We're going to skip on to the next one and we'll come right back to you when you come back in. Is that fair? All right, we're going to do that. Let's move on here. So this evening we have Dixon Salo proposal for design of municipal center ramps. This evening I have Andy Deschaines here to give an update and just an overview over what this project's about.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, so it's just cleaning up the last bit of accessibility that's needed in the municipal center. There's a couple of entrances in the back that need handrails, and another one that needs a sloped sidewalk and new stairs. So that's really all this is. It's a pretty simple little project, but we need to get it done so we have all the entrances accessible and code compliant. Dixon Salo is somebody we've worked with before. I worked with them on One Grafton Common. They're not the same folks that we did the last handicapped ramp project with. Those guys didn't work out quite so well. Sometimes what you get is what you pay for, or what you pay for is what you get. So we're back with somebody that we know and trust, and we know will do a good job. This is a pretty straightforward project, like the last one should have been. But the guys that we have for this one are very reliable and will do a good job.
All right, thank you very much. So just to recap, this was something that was just recently approved at town meeting, correct? For funding, just the other week?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. DeShane on the ramp project? Mr. Prisby and Mr. Often.
So Andy, we're looking at a total cost of 6820.
For the design services, yeah,
Okay. That doesn't include construction.
it does not.
Okay, what's the total project cost? I'm sorry.
I knew you were gonna, you know what, I don't have it right in front of me. Bob kind of threw this one at me, and so I've seen the contract piece of this for the design side, but I haven't seen a construction estimate. My opinion, the design side of this was a little higher than I certainly than the last guy that we used, but again, you know, this will be much more straightforward. These guys are very good at what they do. We won't have any issues at all like we did on the last one. So I think it's worth it to go with somebody that we know and trust. And I can certainly talk to Bob and find out what the construction budget is for this.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Mr. Carter, go ahead. Yep.
This card, my apologies, I'm struggling here with the internet. The total budget inclusive of construction design and design oversight is it's budgeted at 75,000. Obviously, for anyone who knows construction, it is what it gets bid at and what the change orders are. But that is our hoped for budget target and the amount that was appropriated, $75,000.
Thank you. Mr. Often?
Yeah, no, I fully support this build out. I think it's great. It's really nice to see. We've heard, you know, the parks are all getting ADA accessible surfaces now. This is, you know, entrances to the municipal center. This is, you know, all things that are recommended and required by our self evaluation plan that we had done a few years ago. So it's great to see significant progress now that's happening sort of all over town to make sure that we have accessible facilities for everybody.
All right, anybody else? Questions, comments? So Andy, I just want to, go over here real quick that this proposal is essentially for new accessible entrances at the following locations: the rear entrance to the Veterans Memorial Hall, which is that slope sidewalk and stairs, the rear entrance to the municipal offices at the center of the building, adding a handrail to one side, and the rear entrance to the municipal office at the end of the building, adding an additional handrail to one side as well.
That's correct.
Okay, great, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions or comments for Andy? If not, I can entertain a motion.
I move the board vote to authorize the chairman to sign the proposal with Dixon Salo for the design work on the exterior ramp to the Grafton Municipal Center in the amount of $6,820.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All those by roll call, please. Mr. Often.
Often aye.
Mr. Fazio.
Fazio, I.
Ms. Roy.
Roy, I.
Mr. Prisby.
Frisbee, aye.
Peter Carlson, I declare the motion carried. Thank you very much, Andy, for coming in tonight. If I don't see you, talk to you, have a great Thanksgiving.
Thanks. Send you all.
All right. All right. I don't see John Allen back in yet, and I don't see him in the attendees. See here. Why don't we take this one out of order here? This is a pretty straightforward one. Section F, action regarding change order for Childscapes contracts. This evening, we have Jen Anderson, who is the Recreation Director here to talk about this. And I think there's some good news here, Jen, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, yeah, bottom line is we're reducing the costs. We're saving money. So, yeah. Good.
All right. So this is a change order from $154,426.52 to $149,696.96. Okay. Does any questions for this change order for Ms. Anderson? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for the change order.
I move the board vote to authorize the chairman to sign the change order for the Childscapes contract dated October 19th, 2020.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All those by roll call, please. Mr. Often.
Often aye.
Mr. Fazio.
Fazio, I.
Ms. Roy.
Roy, I.
Mr. Prisby.
Frisbee, aye.
Peter Carlson, aye. All right, declare the motion carried. Thank you very much, Jen, for coming in. Have a happy Thanksgiving to you and yours.
Thank you too.
All right. I see John Allen is back. Let me just promote him to a panelist and see if we got his audio squared away, and then we will move on to Traffic Safety Committee recommendations.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, John, I can hear you loud and clear.
Excellent. Sorry about the technical difficulties. Thank you for allowing me to speak. This is our third year of Shop Grafton. Shop Grafton has become an important economic development program for the town of Grafton, especially in the year with COVID 2019. As you can imagine, these stores have struggled. Some have been closed for over 7 weeks. And with Shop Grafton, our goal and objective is to encourage people to shop locally. The Economic Development Commission has been supportive of this program, and this year they put up 10 prizes. Each person who wins gets a $100 gift certificate to the Grafton business of their choice. From an economic standpoint, this supports our community, gives it some vibrancy, and makes it interesting. People like to go to different stores and shops and restaurants, and Shop Grafton helps to ensure those businesses will be around. You can pick up the cards at any of the participating stores, and you visit 10 different stores, you get your card stamped, and you get entered to win a raffle. We really appreciate it. This is on the Grafton Facebook page, and I would encourage you to share it on your social media because that's how things are done nowadays. Any questions?
Any board members have any questions for Mr. Allen?
Just to say that at least some of us have already shared, so, and actually gotten some positive comments.
Excellent.
Thank you for your support.
Mr. Fazio, did you have a question?
No, I just wanted to say thank you to John for his efforts. I'm, the select board representative for this committee, and I really liked that the committee decided this year, instead of buying, Amazon prizes or iWatches or something, that we all thought that unanimously that it was a great idea to put these gifts and prizes back into the community. So I think that's a really good call. And again, John, thank you for your efforts, and we'll do everything we can to spread the word.
Thank you.
Thank you, John, very much for coming in tonight. Thanks for promoting this event. I'm looking forward to this year and seeing how people can help support local businesses in any way that you feel that we can help further the message, or anything that you want us, just feel free to send us an email reminding us to post on our social media pages and help you get that word out. I believe Mr. Often already beat us to it, but I'll be sure to do this right after the meeting. But thank you for coming out tonight.
I greatly appreciate it, and thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you. All right. I appreciate that. I was just reminded I totally neglected to go over announcements, but I want to go through the remainder of the schedule here, as we have people who are patiently waiting to ask us for some business. After the schedule, I'll go back and read those the announcements. Sorry. So my bad. So next up here, we have Traffic Safety Committee recommendations. In this evening, we have Chief Crapo here to, I believe, go through a few motions for consideration tonight from the board.
Okay, good evening, everyone. The Traffic Safety Committee met on October 14th to discuss several petitions. Not all the petitions were acted on, not all were passed. After review and discussion on all the requests, the Traffic Safety Committee forwarded the following recommendations to the Select Board for consideration. Did you want to take one at a time and vote on each one? Or?
Yeah, let's do that. I think each one is significant enough. If people have questions about them, that would be great. Yeah.
Very good.
So the first one we have up here is motion consideration one, with regards to requesting us to place 2 stop signs in both directions on Keith Hill Road where it intersects with Salisbury Street. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, if not, I can entertain a motion.
I move the board vote to accept the recommendations of the Traffic Study Committee to place 2 stop signs in both directions on Keith Hill Road where it intersects with Salisbury Street.
Second,
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those by roll call, please. Mr. Often,
Often, aye.
Mr. Fazio,
Fazio, I.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, I.
Peter Carlson, aye. Okay, declare the motion carried.
Hey, what about me?
Oh, Mr. Prisby.
Thanks,
Wow.
Pete.
Yeah. Well,
Frisbee, aye.
thank you.
Darn it.
Declare the motion carried 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Prisby. Next up here, we have a second consideration here. Did you want to give us an update on that one, Chief? Or you just want to?
It was a request originally from Kerry Drake for a crosswalk between Gershom and Whitney Streets. That's on the Westboro line practically, and a speed indicator sign. After much discussion with regards to the configuration of the road, lack of handicap ramps and all, a crosswalk was not recommended. However, a motion was made to install signage in both directions on Old Westboro Road at the intersection of Gershom to indicate pedestrians in the road, and those signs are to be placed at the discretion of DPW.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I can entertain a motion.
I move the board vote to accept the recommendations of the Traffic Study Committee to install signage in both directions on Old Westboro Road at the intersection of Gershom to indicate pedestrians in the road at the discretion of the DPW.
Second,
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those by roll call, please. Mr. Often,
Often, aye.
Mr. Fazio,
Fazio, I.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, I.
Mr. Prisby.
Yeah.
Carlson, aye. Thank you. Declare the motion carried. All right,
Okay, the next one, item number 3, was a request from Tracy Arredondo for slow children at play signs on Dearnome, Hilltop, and Fairlawn Streets. Following the presentation by the petitioner's daughter, Layla, she sent a handwritten note. I don't know if you can see, you can't see that with the background there, but Layla made a nice presentation as to why we should have slow children at play signs in the neighborhood because of cars that travel above the speed limit. So after her very convincing testimony, we voted to install children at play signs on Dearnome, Hilltop, and Fairlawn Streets with 20-mile-per-hour advisory signs on Hilltop, and Fairlawn at the discretion of DPW.
any questions or comments?
No,
I
I
don't think
love it
anyone's
though.
going to say no.
Right? It's, well, and those are, they're such great neighborhoods, but packed with families.
Yeah.
So yeah, no reason anybody should be speeding through there.
And my comment is just way to go, Layla. Good job.
Yeah.
Way to participate.
A handwritten letter, yeah, that gets a lot of credit for me too. All right, if there isn't any other questions or comments, I can entertain a motion.
I move the board vote to accept the recommendation of the Traffic Safety Committee to install children at play sign on Dearnome, Hilltop, and Fairlawn Streets with 20-mile-per-hour advisory signs on Hilltop and Fairlawn at the discretion of the DPW.
Second,
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All those by roll call. Mr. Often,
Often, aye.
Mr. Fazio,
Fazio, I.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, I.
Mr. Prisby,
Frisbee, aye.
Carlson, aye. All right, declare the motion carried. All right, 2 more here. Next one.
Okay, this was a request from Greg Klosick for a speed limit sign as well as a possible blind driveway or disabled child sign in the area of 37 Old Westboro Road. After discussion regarding this, a motion was made to install 2 impaired child signs in both directions in the vicinity of 37 Old Westboro Road at the discretion of DPW. And the reason why we didn't add speed limit signs because we have to do research on the speed zone. So a motion was also made to request the DPW to research traffic speed zones and the criteria to install legal speed signs within the parameters of these zones. So they're going to do research on that and bring it back to the board for consideration.
All right, any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I can entertain a motion.
I move the board vote to accept the recommendation of the Traffic Safety Committee to install 2 impaired children signs in both directions in the vicinity of 37 Old Westboro Road at the discretion of the DPW, and to request the DPW to research traffic speed zones and the criteria to install legal speed signs within the parameters of these zones.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All those by roll call, please. Mr. Often,
Often aye.
Mr. Fazio,
Fazio, aye.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, I.
Mr. Frisbee,
Yeah.
Carlson, aye. All right, declare motion carried. Thank you. And last up, the
Last request was from Robert Cardoza for a not a truck route or trucks prohibited sign posted on Pleasant Street. After a discussion of trucks using Pleasant Street as always termed a cut through or whatnot, included possible missing weight limit signs at the Baptist Stone Bridge, which was determined to be a state bridge. A motion was made to ask DPW to investigate the establishment of a truck route between Main Street, Route 122A, and Providence Road, Route 122. And Danny Pogazewski recused himself, as he does live in that area. So,
any questions or comments? Chief, I have one question on that one. And I'm all for, prohibiting as a truck bypass. Is this something that can be enforced, or is this just like a deterrent?
well, if we create a truck route and it goes through the proper procedures, it can be enforced. The thing is to have, how often can we have an officer there watching trucks going through? That's always the thing for enforcement. But if eventually it can be done, then, it would be enforced. It's funny, right after that, I had a request for making Cross Street a no-through trucking. So you see the issue, people don't want trucks on the street, but where do we send them? And right now with the configuration at Main and Providence Road, be a little tough because that'd be the only place that a truck could turn from 122 Providence Road onto 122A Main Street. That would have to be reconfigured with some parking near Fancy Pizza and all that for a truck to safely negotiate a right turn there, seeing as that they'd have no place else to go. So we'd have to take that into consideration in the future.
I have one more follow-up to that, Chief. And the reason I'm saying that is I lived over that area for years. I don't live there anymore, but what's to prevent people from taking Follett Street as a cut through from Depot Street up 122A and then making, and try to navigate that narrow road?
That would be another thing. And, we had truck traffic there in the past, and there is truck traffic there. So nobody and I can understand that the roads are not made for trucks, but where do they go?
Yeah.
We've got trucks going all over because now we're finding that the truck drivers, for some reason, they're blindly following their GPS, and the GPS doesn't tell you what kind of street it's on. I mean, I was talking to somebody not the other day about vehicles that are being sent on large 18-wheel vehicles, 53 footers, going down George Hill Road. Coming from Upton, taking was it Grafton Road to in that area there, and so it's it's all over. But that's the problem, that the trucks are just taking and following their GPS blindly to these roads where I don't know where it picks up shortcuts or whatever, but it happens. It happens. So
okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right. Seeing none, I can entertain a motion.
I move the board vote to accept the recommendation of the Traffic Study Committee to ask the DPW to investigate the establishment of a truck route between Main Street, Route 122A, and Providence Road, Route 122.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Frisbee.
So this is just, we're asking them to investigate the possibility. If they come back and say it's a bad idea, there's no place else to go with the trucks, then this likely doesn't go anywhere.
pretty much.
Okay.
I mean, if nothing else, we can do what we've done in the past, like we can put up caution signs or advisory signs, but those are not enforceable. But if somebody's looking to turn on, say we Pleasant Street, it'll give them pause to consider using another route. But if it's not passed by, or if it's not legal, then we can't enforce it.
All right. Any other questions or comments on the motion? All right, seeing none, all those by roll call, please. Mr. Often,
Often aye.
Mr. Fazio,
Fazio, I.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, I.
Mr. Prisby,
Frisbee, aye.
Carlson, I declare the motion carried. Chief,
If-
yes,
If I may, just not on the agenda, it's just, first of all, it's more like a holiday warning. We've experienced today, we had a couple of complaints for brakes in the motor vehicles, and I just want to let everybody know, anybody that's watching, please, we've put it out more times than I care to remember in my Chiefs column on our Facebook page. People need to learn to lock the car doors, take their possessions from the vehicles, and take the keys from the vehicles. I don't care if it's in your driveway, parked in front of your house with a camera watching it. People, especially with the holidays coming, because people go shopping now, they pull their car up, they're too tired to bring their packages in, they stay there, and we have, individuals out there, they're not actually from Massachusetts, but they've hit our area, they've hit Westboro, they've hit a couple of other areas. And I just want to warn people, especially with the holidays coming, please do what you can to keep your vehicles safe, your home safe, lock your doors, and with your car, take your keys and take your pocketbooks and your cell phones and your computers and whatever else that you don't want to lose because it's being taken. So just want to put that general warning out to everybody. So thank you for your time with that.
well, Chief, thank you very much for the PSA, and I agree, it's, constant reminders any way possible. If you need to use announcements here for the select board, when I do read them in the beginning of the meeting, please feel free to forward them along, and I'll make sure I
This
mention.
came up, yeah, this came up today. We had at least 3. We're waiting to see if we have more, but I just want to warn everybody.
Well, thank you very much, Chief, for coming in for the warning and the PSA. Happy Thanksgiving to your family.
Thanks to you and everybody on the board.
Have a
Thanks,
good night.
Chief.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you very much. So coming up next here, we have action that we have to take for a 90-day appointment extension of the temporary town administrator for Carter Terenzini. So just a little background on this, as you're aware, the charter only allows for 90-day appointments for this, and we anticipated this extension as a result of just the hiring process with the new permanent town administrator going forward. So if there isn't any questions or comments, anyone have anything that they need to ask or clarify or understand? If there isn't, I can entertain a motion.
I move the board vote to extend the 90-day appointment of the temporary town administrator.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Prisby.
Yeah, I just, want to thank Carter for the past couple months. I know this has not been an easy situation to jump into. I would imagine that it's never easy, given change in an executive position in a municipality. I think it's been made especially hard with COVID. There are a lot of things, there are known unknowns and there are unknown unknowns, and you've handled them well. So, we thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Prisby. Any other questions or comments on the motion? All right, seeing none, all those by roll call, please. Mr. Often,
Often aye.
Mr. Fazio,
Fazio, I.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, I.
Mr. Prisby,
Frisbee, aye.
Peter Carlson, aye. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right, next up, we have Select Board Goals and Work Plan for FY21 through FY24. Carter, do you want to give just an update as to where we're at tonight, and then I could open it up to the board for any additional comments or questions, and then take action?
He's frozen.
Must have been.
I,
There he is. Well, I think we're having a technical difficulty here with Carter's Zoom meeting.
I think we have
Carter, if you can hear us, we're having difficulty hearing you. All right. Just to give an update for the public, I guess. Does anyone want to take a stab at that? Go first, or I could just lead into it then. All right. So what we have in front of us here tonight is to vote to adopt a work plan and goals that we set out through several workshops that we've had dating back to October. And as a result of this, this was work that was done by the select board in conjunction with the temporary town administrator, Carter Terenzini. And what we're looking to adopt tonight is just the draft of these goals and to accept them and start working them into not only the short but long-term objectives that the board had set out. Just for the public's disclosure, if you're following along in the packet, you can see that there are certain items that are well underway, and there are certain things that are tagged for fiscal year 21 and then going forward for fiscal 22 through fiscal year 24. There are some items that are, like I was saying, are currently in process and underway, as well as some items that are still in development phase for this fiscal year and are outlined within the packet as to where we are with statuses. So with that, we've developed a goal structure based on three main pillars: one, administration and finance; two, development and services; and the third one with regards to public works, DPW. Each one of these are outlined and are developed with our input from several meetings and summarized on this sheet here for tracking purposes. So without further ado, I think Carter, are you back with us?
I am. I don't know how good the buffering is. From what I heard of you describing it, it was spot on. I hope it gives the board some clear direction to the departments so we understand goals and provide a good framework going forward in developing your annual budgets.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Fazio.
Thanks, Peter. I think that it was Mr. Often that had mentioned last week of maybe putting select board names on, kind of breaking this down just for updates of, those of us who are championing different items that we can, instead of the whole board being responsible for everything, we can give different updates as needed. I think some of those will come into a category where it will be the entire board, but I think there are some that, we can sort of break off and give updates as needed. So I wanted to bring that up again because I thought it was a good suggestion and didn't know if it was something we wanted to add on.
All right. Anyone want to comment or address that question? Mr. Often.
Yeah, I think we should adopt this tonight, and we can just volunteer to champion the things that we're interested in championing. And I don't know necessarily that we need to change the document, but I do think it's a good idea.
All right, great. So we can consider reviewing this tonight and adopting it, and we can bring it back probably next meeting, maybe the workshop on the 8th, and just go over very high level over goals that board members want to be more involved with. Is there any other questions or comments on adopting the goals tonight? I just want to take a moment and thank Mr. Terenzini for his time and his effort in help facilitating this. I also want to thank the rest of the select board too. We met a couple times outside during some chilly nights, but I thought it was really good to be doing this in person, socially distanced, of course, outdoors. I also want to personally thank the Lions Club for offering the use of their pavilion. If the community isn't aware of it, it is a wonderful resource to the community. And it was fantastic to be able to host something during the COVID-19 pandemic in a safe and reasonable way outdoors. And their generosity obviously assisted with putting these plans together that we have in front of us tonight. Any other comments? If not, I can entertain a motion to accept the proposed goals.
Move the board adopt the select board work plan and goals for FY21 to FY24 as presented and to direct they be circulated to all town departments.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none. All those by roll call, please. Mr. Often.
Often aye.
Mr. Fazio.
Fazio, aye.
Ms. Roy.
Roy, I.
Mr. Frisbee.
Yeah.
Peter Carlson, I declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. All right, well, we got through that. Thank you for your patience. And again, please excuse and grant me this one indulgence. I neglected to read the announcements at the beginning of the meeting, so please bear with me here for a few moments while I go over this. So select board meeting announcements. I just want to give the community a COVID update. As of November 17th, there are 215 total COVID cases reported in Grafton. That includes 11 newly reported cases just as of yesterday. This year will be very different for Thanksgiving for many, and we ask residents to please adhere to the guidelines put in place by the governor, and they can be found on the state website at www.mass.gov. Please follow these guidelines as they will help keep us, your friends, and this community and family members healthy and safe during this holiday week. Just a reminder that the DPW facility update has completed and the moves to the new facility at 64 Old Westboro Road. Residents should be aware that the administrative office, which was at the town hall, is also relocated to that new facility. The facility will be staffed from 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. The administrative office is open by appointment only at 8:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Appointments can be made by calling the office at 508-839-5335, extension 1124. Senior Center news. COVID will not dampen the Senior Center's holiday spirit this year. Instead of our holiday giving tree, the Senior Center is requesting gift cards, preferably from local businesses for seniors in our community. A locking Senior Center mailbox has been mounted near the front of the door of the Senior Center. If anyone prefers to drop off gift cards, or you can call the office at 508-839-9242 to arrange a drop-off in person. By participating in this drive, not only are you helping Grafton seniors, your friends and neighbors, but you're also helping local businesses. Of course, other cards will be accepted as well. Unibank's annual holiday giving campaign has gone virtual. Help make the season brighter for the seniors in the Grafton community by donating to the Grafton Senior Center through Unibank's secure payment collection system, Unipay. The campaign is Unibank's dedication to making the season brighter for seniors in the Grafton community. You can make a donation at www.unibank.com and select the Grafton Senior Center. In the library news, Grafton Public Library staff and Board of Library Trustees are excited to announce Marilyn Wilcox has achieved Paralibrarian Level 1 status through the Massachusetts Library Association. Marilyn has worked for the Grafton Public Library for over 15 years in the centers and the Children's Library. The Select Board congratulates Marilyn on this achievement and thanks her for her hard work and dedication to the Grafton Public Library. And I will also extend that the community is very grateful for Marilyn in achieving this status. We thank her for that. That is all I have for announcements. Thank you. I will move on next to, we have a few resignations this evening. Senior Center, Stephen Decatur.
I move the board vote to accept the resignation of Stephen Decatur as a part-time van driver effective October 2nd, 2020, and send him a letter of thanks for his years of service.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All those by roll call, please. Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Mr. Fazio?
DeFazio, aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, I.
Mr. Frisbee?
Yeah.
Peter Carlson, aye. Thank you. Declare motion carried. Next up, we have another resignation, Assistant Treasurer Collector Sue Rogers.
Can I ask a question I've always wanted to know before I make this motion? Who sends the letter of thanks?
The TA's office does.
Okay. I move the board vote to accept the resignation of Sue Rogers as the Assistant Treasurer Collector effective November 27, 2020, and send her a letter of thanks for her 16 years of service for the town of Grafton.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Prisby.
Just at some point, maybe we can do this in TA reports. We should address what's going to happen with the treasurer collector's office.
Duly noted. We'll add that. Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the motion? I just want to add one personal thing. I've known Sue for, I think, almost all of her 16 years while she worked here in Grafton, and I personally just want to thank her for her years of service and wish her the best of luck in her new endeavor. I know she'll be sorely missed, you know, at any rate, just want to thank her very much for her years. Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, all those by roll call, please. Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Mr. Fazio?
Fazio, aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, I.
Mr. Prisby?
Yeah.
Peter Carlson, I declare the motion carried. Last up, I've got resignation here for Mr. Moisen on the Capital Improvement Planning Committee.
I move the board vote to accept the resignation of Carl Moisten from the Capital Improvement Planning Committee effective immediately and send him a letter of thanks for his service.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? I just wanted to also thank Mr. Moisen. I personally served with him on CIPC for a number of years and personally want to thank him for his years of service and dedication to that committee. His leadership during those years while he's active was extremely helpful, and his insight into financing was a great addition to the committee. I do look forward to seeing a vacancy posted and this filled soon. I know the CIPC has a lot of hard work in front of them in a short amount of time. So for those people who are interested in the committee, I please keep a lookout for the web page, Grafton's webpage, and submit your interests. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those by roll call, please. Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Mr. Fazio?
Fazio, aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, I.
Mr. Prisby?
Yeah.
Peter Carlson, aye. Clear, motion carried. Thank you. We don't have any correspondence. I'm sorry, we have, no appointments for town administrator. We don't have any new business. Just to remind everyone, I moved some things around on the agenda to get people who were invited, to speak tonight, to kind of get them in and out a little bit sooner. Typically, we would have had some things done in new business, but I wanted to try this format out tonight instead of moving things around in the agenda like we've done in the past. So if anyone has any questions or comments or has any feelings on how that was done tonight, please let me know after the meeting and we can discuss how the agenda is formatted going forward. Next up, we have select board reports, TA reports. Does anyone have a select board report that they want to offer? Ms. Roy?
Just that the CIPC has been working really hard on getting the capital submissions all prioritized, and hopefully we'll have a deliverable for December 1st.
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Roy. Anyone else have a select board member report? Mr. Prisby?
Yeah, just real quick, meeting with Carter on Thursday morning. The office has some information that we need to keep moving forward with the GSC stuff. As far as the benchmarking report goes, I also want to meet with him about just presenting it here in the group and how that would work. I would imagine what's going to happen, like I said before, is we'll have Barry come in and maybe Amy Moore from the school side come in and go through that. But I'm hoping to get that on the calendar for early December so we can get that out of the way.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fazio?
Do you think that would be a good workshop item?
That would be, actually, that's a good idea. So maybe like, I think we're doing December 1 and 15 so far. So maybe December 8.
December 8th is the next scheduled select board workshop.
Yeah, so let's do that.
Okay. All right. Any other select board member reports? I just have one, and I don't believe I shared this last week, but I did attend a library building committee while Mr. Fazio was unable to attend that one Monday. Just want to say that they're moving along at a great pace. The meeting was handled very well. I want to say they're very organized and very transparent. Everything is all outlined that they're doing right now. But at any rate, I want to thank the Library Building Committee as well as Annie DeShane for organizing and really seeing a building project come to fruition. Every day there's something new that's added to that site. So I know people, when you drive by, you can take a look at the progress. I believe, facade is finally going up and being finished up shortly, and they'll begin interior work shortly. All right, if there isn't, Mr. Often.
Yeah, just I guess I just wanted to report in that I attended the first CMRPC meeting. It was actually a great meeting. I have to admit I was dreading it a little bit because I hadn't actually looked at the agenda, but the whole thing was about diversity and inclusion in planning, and it was great. So it was really an interesting situation. One of the speakers was quite eloquent. They were really advocating for complete streets. And then just a few days later, we got a capital request to help fund Grafton starting to participate in the Complete Streets program. So it was kind of a nice synergy between some of the recent meetings that I've been at. So it was great. It was really good. I didn't realize that Bob Hassinger was the chair. So we have a lot of local Grafton representation now. It's good.
Thank you, Mr. Often. All right. Anybody else? Anything? All right. I see that Carter dropped off, but we can come back to his component for town administrator update and TA reports. We didn't have any correspondence, Ms. Roy, right? I don't believe so.
We don't do correspondence anymore. Now it's in the packet, and if people want to comment on it, they bring it up.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks for the reminder. All right. So next up, ask for discussion about cannabis, our Town of Grafton cannabis business policy. Just to kind of preface a little bit, I know some of us have been kind of eager to discuss this, and I don't have anything really prepared tonight, but just wanted to open this up as to, I guess, how to move forward and how to have a general discussion around this. It's relatively new to Grafton, and I know we're eager to see some development occur for, we could use the revenue, but I wanted to, put this on here per request and see how the board wants to move forward. And I figure if we take this information here tonight and either looking at December 1st or December 8th to have a follow-up based on how this conversation goes tonight. So I'm going to open up the floor, whoever wants to go first. Wow, that was a tie, but I'm going to go with Ms. Roy first and then Mr. Prisby.
So I'm just going to point out that Mr. Terenzini joined us back as an attendee. And as far as cannabis, I would like to say that I just want to know where we are with our policy. What is our policy? If another company came to us today and said, hey, I would like to sign out of HCA, would we? I know we've talked about revamping our HCA. Have we? And is it still the race to the finish line as we've been saying all along, or did something change along the lines and we need to be aware of that?
All right. Does anyone have anything else they want to add? Mr. Prisby?
Yeah, so along those lines, I can tell you that I was on the board when we first started doing these, and, anytime you enter into a negotiation with another party for any type of contract, whether it's an HCA or anything else, you're assuming everybody's operating with a certain degree of good faith. And this being new, I don't think we all really saw the whole chessboard of how this was going to work in Massachusetts. I think local communities saw another revenue stream, and I think people who are in the industry saw an opportunity to make as much money as humanly possible and be able to manipulate the system to make that happen. What we're seeing so far is the implementation of an imperfectly written law concerning host community agreements and the consequences of the way this law was written as far as financing goes for these businesses. So for instance, if you're going to operate one of these businesses, you're not going to go out and get traditional financing because this is a controlled substance still classified as illegal by the federal government. Traditional lending institutions don't want to lend money to you to start something up. That makes it really difficult for the smaller entrepreneur to do something, but a little bit easier for those people who are already in the industry or who have plenty of cash to go ahead and make this happen. My problem with what is going on right now is, I think we'll coin the phrase big marijuana. People who are in the industry have systematically gone from community to community and requested HCAs from communities who are eager for that revenue stream, and the communities eager for the revenue stream have in turn turned around like us and given the HCA to basically whomever walks in the door, and under the framework of the law provides them with fees, taxes, a percentage of income, all the rest. And now, because of the Byzantine and confusing nature of the law, the communities then aren't really sure what to do after we give out an HCA and push the prospective applicant toward the finish line. And what you're seeing, I think, is some applicants who have stores in other communities sitting on HCAs in some communities and clogging up lanes for people who would otherwise want to compete with them. So if Cumberland Farms Marijuana opens up an establishment in Millbury and also has an HCA in Grafton, they can sit on the HCA in Grafton, not do anything with it indefinitely, and prevent anybody from coming in to compete with their Millbury location. That's a problem for us. And I think, I suspect that we're seeing that right now. When we gave out HCAs 18 months ago, it was supposed to be 9 months after the HCA before the store would open. And at the time, I thought that was aggressive because we all know construction and we all know projects, and we knew that you were dealing with the state as well. Then we were told, well, it's going to take a little bit of more time, but we're provisionally licensed, which now we realize is basically the same thing for being pre-approved for mortgage. Congratulations, you have your provisional license, but now you're not going further. And then there seems to be some confusion about how you cross the finish line. What do we have to give to the applicant in order for the applicant to make good with the CCC? So we've got a lot to work through here, not the least of which is we have, 2 slots for recreational marijuana, and a lot of communities are limiting giving out HCAs to the amount of slots that they have. I think that's a mistake. There was a case recently that went up to, I think, the Essex Superior Court or Middlesex, I can't remember which, but said that the communities have the power to do that. I think that's a bad idea. I think you want to give out as many as you have applications and tell these people, look, if you've got the cash to go either construct or renovate a facility in a properly zoned area, go do that, and you have our backing. If you can show us that you've got a distribution chain, that you've got security, that you've got infrastructure, then go do it. But we never once had that conversation about how many we were going to give out. We had this kind of fricacta set up where someone would come into us and make an initial presentation and then go away, and then a few weeks later come back for a vote. I don't know where that came from. I thought that was a bad idea. So there's we had a lot of balls in the air on this. And I'm glad this was put on the agenda because, by the way, the correspondence tonight that we did have was basically telling us to get off our keisters and go do something to bring in more revenue. And the longer the situation goes on, the more we look silly for not pushing it in the right direction. So at some point, I think we've got to get Resonate and the other, I forget who the other party is, with the HCA in here to say, what's the story? Because we were told 18 months ago that it would be 9 months. And we were budgeting back when we were doing projections just a year ago for $1 million in new revenue based on the income stream here, and we're not seeing it. And so this is a problem.
Any other questions, comments, Mr. Often and Mr. Fazio?
Yeah, so Ed, thanks for kind of framing the conversation in such an eloquent way. I think it captures a lot of the dynamics of what are going on right now. I'm equally concerned, I guess, that we've both given out more HCAs than we have potential, positions open in town for stores to open, and that we don't have any kind of policy environment to help the businesses understand what the playing field is. That's a big concern of mine, as well as I want to make sure that we're encouraging, maybe via policy or maybe some just informal discussions, but we need to be encouraging these businesses to be moving at some pace so that we're understanding what's happening and we actually have some expectation of some revenue at some point. If not, we should be having John Allen go out and market us more to say, hey, look, this is Grafton's sort of set of rules. This is where we're at. We have more capacity to bring in additional HCAs to get companies in that might be a little bit more aggressive with their development efforts, So I do think there's a lot of work to do here to make sure that all the businesses understand where we're at and how things are going to progress as we go along. Because as you said, you can have lots of companies with provisional licenses out there. That doesn't mean that they're actually actively developing businesses. So we want to put all of the businesses that are actually interested in opening stores in the best position possible to understand that they have our support, that they're not going to be hampered in any way along the way, and what the finish line actually looks like. Because I don't think we know, and if we don't know, they definitely don't know. So that's a big concern of mine. So yeah, we need to have some discussions about this, and I want to be crystal clear with the businesses that are, making big investments potentially in Grafton, to help them understand where we're at with this, and what that finish line is for them. It's critical, very important for us.
Great, thank you. Mr. Fazio?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I agree with what's been said. I'm not going to revisit that, but just a couple comments here. So I came on the board right when we were signing, I think, the last HCA that we have. And is there a current business policy is my first question. Do we have any sort of current business policy in place? And if the answer to that is no, just another couple comments. And again, like to Mr. Prisby's point earlier, I don't even think the state had secured guidelines because this was new to everybody. And so, the municipalities also just kind of stepped in, just, again, seeing a revenue stream and keeping it wide open. Based on the position we're in, another question I have is, do we have the right as a municipality to have an expiration date on any of the HCAs and or putting any guidelines or processes, like to Mr. Often's point, where, every couple months, we expect you to hit a threshold. And if you're not hitting a threshold during our timeline, then we have the right to revisit that or add additional HCAs to our process. So I like where this discussion is going. Those are my questions that I just wanted to add.
Okay. Great. Ms. Roy and then Mr. Prisby.
So to add on to the expiration date, I think more than just the HCA can have an expiration date. I think an outreach meeting can have an expiration date. I think a provisional license can have an expiration date, and a provisional license can also move out of town. So they could start their process here in Grafton. They can get an HCA with us. They can get a provisional license, and then they can move to Ashland and say bye. And that would really be upsetting to us because we were coaching them along the way. So there's a lot of steps in this process that I think we really do want to have a better handle on, for sure.
So the community outreach already has, by state law, an expiration, and I think it's a year. So that one already has something in place.
Mr. Prisby?
Yeah, that's right. That's one of the few steps that actually does. Although I think there is, I can't remember if there was an application period in totem for the CCC, but certainly what we need to, I think we should revisit the host community agreement to establish a withdrawal provision in there based on timeline or based on missed payments would be obvious, but sort of missteps along the way and identify those steps with some certainty. If you'd asked me this question 2 years ago, probably would have told you that's a bad idea, because you want to make sure for investors there's an amount of certainty. But you know, we're just not seeing it. We're really sort of in a difficult place with these applicants, because once given away, I think it's going to be hard to get to revoke that HCA and really give somebody the stick as opposed to the carrot to get this done. So I think that's an action item we should probably add to an agenda in the very near future.
All right, Mr. Fazio.
What would be really helpful to me as a review, and to make sure that I'm also not missing anything in these decisions, is kind of a cannabis business policy 101. You know, like if we can kind of put together either in the agenda or, you know, share links, share history, you know, meetings that we can go back and watch, that would be extremely helpful to me.
I have a timeline like that from 2018 and 2019 when every host community agreement was signed, and you can go right in the minutes and find it, and then find the videos online with GCTV. I actually sent one to Carter today. I watched one, and I do know we got our HCA from Leicester. That's where we copied it from. So it would be interesting to touch back with them to see if they've revamped theirs since we copied it, and maybe copy it again.
1 minute, just a note here. I think Carter is trying to dial in. He has experienced some internet trouble at his home. Carter, is that you at this phone number here, 603 number?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Okay.
My apologies for being a nuisance here tonight.
All right. So real quick, I got a page of notes here for us. Mr. Often.
Yeah, I think until we actually develop something, I'd be interested in the board's interests in whether we can agree in principle that, you know, if the CCC comes to us for any of the prospective businesses where they, you know, approvals or any materials that are required for either a provisional or an operational license, that at this point, without having any other policy, that we would, we're still in the race to the finish mode where, you know, until you open a business, you don't have one of the licenses, one of the two licenses in Grafton. Because what I don't want to do is further muddy the waters from where they already are. So my understanding is that's kind of where we've been. And until we come up with some actual new policy, to just confirm that, so that kind of we've said it out loud.
I agree with that. I like the idea of helping all of the HCAs as much as we can that we've already signed and try to get something open. I would really like to see the revenue at this point.
Anyone else have anything else? Do you want to?
Well, just one more thing. I mean, just to make this an action item and that we don't sort of forget about as time goes on, probably what we need to do is have council review our HCA for exit strategies for the ones that we do have, in the event that we feel that we need to go in another direction for lack of progress. And then probably the next thing to do is to develop policies surrounding the negotiation of the HCA, the redrafting of the HCA, and then policies surrounding final licensure. And because we haven't been through the final licensure part yet, there again, I wouldn't mind getting the advice of counsel about, okay, you know, what does the statute say? What do we know the CCC is going to require of us? What is the CCC going to require of the applicant? And how much discretion do we have to actually issue final approval to get the thing open? You know what I mean? Because what if on occasion we've got 2 slots and 3 applicants come to us at the exact same time and say, okay, we're ready. We just need you to give us the final okay, and we'll go to the CCC with our application. Then what happens? You know, we don't know.
I say we would give them all the final okay and let the CCC sort it out. That's not for
Yeah,
us.
I mean, that,
Yeah.
that could be, but I'd want to know for what our rights and responsibilities are.
You know, if I may, I think that speaks to one of the takeaways I got halfway through the notes here is that, you know, what is the board's authority here? Or if any, right? Where does the state step in with the CCC? You know, how does, you know, we're looking at, you know, does the board have the authority to set, you know, expectations on, you know, community host agreements, so on and so forth. So I think you're right on that, Ed, and I believe Colleen and Matt and Doreen, all of you, I think that, you know, we need to really review this because we're depending on this money, it seems like on an annual basis, and it's becoming ever so more important in our planning strategy, right, for each fiscal year. In addition to that, you know, I do think that, you know, in light of the, you know, correspondence that came in this evening, which we will address at the next meeting, by the way, Mr. Frisbee, that, you know, what is going on with this? Like I see, you know, there's some people in town, I mean, that they voted, you know, overwhelmingly in favor of cannabis. So I think we owe it to ourselves, owe it to the town to, you know, determine, you know, what is our role here? Where is the authority for the board and the town in general? So I get, you know, having legal counsel come in, we could look at potentially the workshop on the 8th. I think this will be a pretty in-depth discussion. I'm curious if the board thinks that this is warrants like just its own meeting. I think it'll be, you know, personally, I think it'll be well attended, online, obviously, but what's your thoughts on trying to put this in on the 8th with other items on a workshop or putting it in its own separate meeting? Mr. Frisbee.
I actually wouldn't mind doing it on the 8th, if only to get a better audience for the GSC thing. So that might be good. You know, you put a couple interesting, I mean, not for nothing, you put a couple interesting things in one meeting in the middle of December. You might get some eyes as opposed to splitting it up. Where, you know, I know it's COVID season and everything, but still around the holidays, attention spans get short.
Absent of Nielsen ratings, I would tend to agree. Mr. Often and Mr. Fazio.
Just give them the thumbs up to doing it on the 8th.
Okay, Mr. Fazio?
Same thing. I don't think it's unreasonable to have 2 items during a workshop. I think that's great. It's also my wedding anniversary, so my husband's going to be thrilled. This is.
I did my select board meeting at my wedding anniversary too this summer. It's like a thing.
Guys, I beat you all. I had knee surgery on my wedding anniversary.
You should have a support group.
Select board spouse support group. They're probably meeting right now and we don't know about it. All right, so we're on for the 8th. I've got a list of things here. I'm definitely going to be reviewing the meeting to make sure we have expectations. I'll look at some logistics for pulling in the resources that were mentioned tonight. I'll even reach out to see if there's any spokesperson from the CCC that's available too. So I will, you know, do everything I can possibly do to, you know, get as many people in the room possible to hear all these questions, or at least draft some of these questions that we have, be able to send them out somehow and maybe get some responses. In the meantime, as we're developing this towards the 8th, we could put a packet of information together for us to review and then take any other action going forward. Ms. Roy?
Is it worth reaching out to the 4 HCAs that we have right now? 18 months ago, they all came in and gave lovely presentations about their hopes and dreams and what they thought they were going to accomplish. Is it too soon to have them back in to say, how's it going? Take their temperatures, what they're thinking. Are they still on track? Are they changing their mind?
So for the 8th, I'm not thinking that that's a reasonable date for that. I think this is how I was thinking, Colleen, that there's a lot to really go over, but at future meetings, you know, beyond the 8th and having them come in and meet with the board and, you know, maybe just give us an update and discuss where they are with things. Or, you know, is this, to Mr. Often's point or Mr. Fazio's point, is this something that, you know, John Allen can go out and do some fact finding for us? And then bring them in and give the board an update and they can answer any questions. You know, is something holding them up? You know, what is it? You know, what can we do to that extent? But unless you don't agree with me and you think we want to do it on the 8th, that'll be quite a bit. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought if we were getting everybody in a room, I didn't know, but if you're right, if we have too much on the plate, then we have too much on the plate.
Well, I think correct me if I'm wrong, but do you all feel that just based on the questions that you're looking at here, that warrants just, it's more of like our own internal conversation, but I do think, we still go forward with bringing in, the host agreement, people who hold the host agreements today and just, have them give us an update as where they are. I mean, what's to say they don't come, they'll come, but at least we can extend the invitation to them at future meetings. Mr. Fazio.
Yeah, so I agree with you, Peter. I think that having an internal conversation first will actually position us to know how we want to move forward. And, I think it's a great idea to call them all in and ask them where they're at. But I think having a workshop first and having us aligned on how we have determined to move forward will only help us have better discussions with them. So, and I also just wanted to comment, Peter, that, I think we all recognize that this is a big agenda item to put together. So as your vice chair, please reach out if I can help in any of the coordination.
If you want to put that together, Doreen, it's all you.
That's not what I said.
I know. Thank you very much for the help. I appreciate it. If I need some clarification from the members, I can ask for that after the meeting. I just want to make sure we're getting everything that we're asking for that date. And then we'll look at a schedule, Ms. Roy, on scheduling the host agreements to come in and give us an update. Anything else? Do we have a good next steps defined? Do we need to add anything else for the 8th?
Just, would we take action like Matt was suggesting earlier, that we just agree to help all of our existing HCAs, or is that just something as a policy understand that that's what we?
I guess there's some discovery. I don't know how to answer that. I'll be honest with you. I feel that this is helping the people with the HCAs. To your point, I think just reviewing the current state of affairs and where we're at with things, and then bringing them in for future meetings to actually, as we have in our own internal discussion, I kind of envision us, the board, then structuring what other information does it need to put together, and then that gets disseminated, and then they can come in and give us an update based on how the meeting on the 8th goes, and then maybe any future meeting after that, if there's some decision that we need to make or some choice that we have to consider. Did I capture that right, or am I not understanding what you're asking?
So I mean, in good faith, should we take an action item either tonight or on the 8th saying that what we have in place, we plan to help, usher through every way we possibly can and not try to inhibit anybody? Or should we wait to take that action item? And it sounds like you would rather wait.
That's how I feel at this point. Mr. Prisby, did you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I think what I'm thinking of is moving tonight that we direct staff to reach out to our present applicants for a status report and have staff report back to us on the 8th. And armed with that information, we can then we can also have the discussion that we were already planning to have surrounding policy. That might inform the discussion a little bit better. We can't direct John Allen, but I leave it to staff to determine who the best person is to go out and gather that information.
Okay.
Is that an actual motion? Can I second?
I was
that?
a suggested motion. If that sounds good, I will make that motion.
I would second a motion like that.
I think you could and probably should make that motion.
I move that we direct staff to request status updates from our present HCA holders and report those status updates back to us for December 8th.
Second.
I have a motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All right. Okay, seeing none, all those by roll call, please. Mr. Often,
Often aye.
Mr. Fazio,
DeFazio, aye.
Mr. Prisby,
Frisbee, aye.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, aye.
Peter Carlson, aye. Okay, declare the motion carried 5-0. All right. I will follow up with Mr. Terenzini on that and figure out the next best course of action and determine who or would be the best appropriate person for that. Is there any other thing we want to mention about cannabis business policy before we move back to TA reports? All right, I want to thank you everyone tonight for your insight. I think this is helpful moving forward, and I'll begin working out the logistics with Carter and staff on for 8th, and we'll also be looking, Ms. Roy, to bringing in applicants at a future date as well to give us, presentation, verbal update as to where they are. Okay. There isn't anything else on that. If it was okay, I would like to move back to TA reports. Carter, you got the audio working at least, I see?
Yes. Are you able to hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly fine.
Okay. So again, my apologies for whatever's going on with the internet here at this end tonight. I did connect with the council that you had engaged to do the election audit early last week. And here in simplest terms is what she had to say. One, that she regretted that she wasn't able to speak with all of the staff. As you know, our town clerk is on leave. But that she did not find there was anything systemic in the error that led to the ballots being set aside in the vault in the manner in which they were. In fact, there had been similar incidences in several other communities in the Commonwealth. Also, she did not find any systemic failings in the conversation that she'd had with Paul Cook, the assistant town clerk. That said, she did feel that the community could benefit from more robust opening checklists, closing checklists, guidebooks, and training of all of the staff. I've asked her to please put this into writing as quickly as she can, and to make whatever suggestions she might make going forward, as it will have, dependent upon the size of her suggestions, budgetary impact. That's really all I can tell you this evening. Happy to follow up in any fashion the board would like. I have urged Ms. Goldberg to reduce this to writing as quickly as possible, given the amount of time that this process has been going on for.
Any questions on Carter's update for election audit? All right. Thank you, Carter. Do you have any other updates for us this evening?
I do want to touch upon the one incident. We did have last week one staff member in town hall who several days after their presence in the building was advised to have COVID testing. The rapid test proved positive and their PCR proved positive. We identified anyone who might have had.
Carter, I'm so sorry. Was advised to can you mute your PC, Carter?
The rapid test.
Hello?
Carter, can you mute your PC microphone? Because when you speak through the phone, I mean, you're getting one of the best like echo delay I've ever heard. So.
Oh dear. Okay.
Peter, can you just mute it?
Can you hear me now? Okay, Peter.
I can hear you better now. Yeah, but I can't mute him. There we go. He's off. Okay.
Okay. I'm so sorry. So we did have the one employee present who several days after they were present tested positive for COVID. We have been through, traced anyone they might have had contact with. They actually only had contact with one person under that definition. The Health Alliance has given us the standards to go by for the future. we'll be putting together a corresponding protocol to circulate to all staff tomorrow. We were trying to balance the privacy and follow the contact tracing procedures as we understood them without inciting fear or concern in folks who had no cause for fear or concern. And I'm not sure that that was necessarily the right messaging path. So we're going to revisit this with the staff tomorrow and develop formal written policy to pursue in the future. However, the building is good, all the staff is good, and we look forward to our one staff member returning after their quarantine period.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Terence. Any questions, Mr. Fazio?
Thank you. Thank you, Carter, for the update. So just to clarify, I want to make sure I understand. So currently up until this point, there's no protocol in the office as to what happens if an employee tests positive? Is that
there was no written standard protocol of what to do, nor exactly how to deal with their return to work. There will be by about 5 p.m. tomorrow night.
Okay. Is that something that perhaps the board could review before it goes out? Or I just, yeah, I mean, so I have a couple questions and concerns.
Sure.
One referring to, you know, I'm glad and thank you. I think that, you know, this is something that we perhaps all missed upon, that there should be some sort of protocol in place to make sure that, you know, depending on the degree, right, the contact, everything else, that all employees feel safe and remain safe at Town Hall or any of our municipal buildings. And then the second question I have is, who is the person to, you know, sort of implement this? Is it you?
What?
Is like, how does that work? And I asked this question because you're part-time too. And so
Right.
I just want to make
So
sure that you know, people know who's going to, you know, sort of implement this policy.
Yeah. So I think the challenge here was that when this person was told they were positive, instead of being told, go talk to your Board of Health and report this or report it to your employer, and we'll have a contact point of who will take the appropriate steps in this policy that we will circulate to you all tomorrow afternoon. I will need comments, questions, suggestions post haste so I can get this thing out Thursday, Friday at the latest, but we'll circulate it out to you. Was that the individual started contacting the people that they, there wasn't sort of any process to any of this at all. And so everybody, at least the ones that they reached out to, had different questions. There was no real definition of what constituted contact. So we had to kind of make it up as we went along yesterday. So the procedures that will be drafting will say, when you find out X, you report to person Y, and then person Y will do A, B, and C, so that it's a very clear set of steps, action steps to be taken. It'll also include what we expect of employees to report to work. And I'll forward you as part of that process. We're going to follow the directions from the Worcester Health Alliance, which I'll forward to you in their entirety tomorrow.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, Ms. Roy?
Yeah, so it is interesting to hear that we didn't have a policy like this in place, seeing how COVID started back in March, and we've made it all the way till November before we had our first exposure like this. Are you noticing any other COVID-related policies that we might want to be looking at that we just kind of assumed have been put in place since March, and we're missing that we need to look at?
I think that we need to look at those. We need to be clearer with people about if they're going to vacation in Florida or Antigua or someplace else, exactly what we expect. And I've got some draft I picked up late this afternoon, but the first and foremost that I want to get out immediately is what do you do when you are told you have a positive test? Who do you call in our organization? What is that person in our organization going to do? How are they going to interact with you? And what is it that we expect of you in order for you to be able to return to work? That's the most immediate issue we've got to get out to everybody.
Thank you. Doreen, did you have another question? You had your hand up.
Thank you. Yeah, Carter, just as a follow-up to that. So what was the procedure or lack of procedure? How is that handled as of for this particular case? Did the employee call you? Did they call someone else? And how was it handled?
So the employee had called me and said, I got tested. The doctor said I should reach out to people that I'd seen. Cindy called me to say, we've had this report. What do you want to do? So the first thing that we did was to reach out to the Health Alliance to determine exactly what constituted contact. And there was only one person that might fit that definition. So we immediately reached out to that person, and they removed themselves from the building. The second thing that we did was we fogged all the areas. We walked the person number one through a process of where were you in the building step by step, and we had Mr. Berger fog those areas. Person number two this morning was working remotely and will work remotely through next week. And we were able to inform person number two this afternoon that in terms of the contact, that is, did they need to go get tested and was it considered that they'd had contact? They did not meet the definitions supplied to us by the Health Alliance, which are effectively under 6 feet, whether masked or not masked, and in the physical space for 10 to 15 minutes. So in the end of the process, no one actually had contact with person number one. We've fogged all of the physical areas. I think that where we were trying to do this step by step, protect privacy and such, and folks who had not had any contact at all with either person number one or number two got a little bit nervous and wondered why we hadn't told everyone. So in the future, I think we'll just tell everybody and expect that they will honor the privacy issues. And if that's what it takes to give everyone that added level of comfort, then I think we'll go ahead and do that.
Any other questions? Mr. Fazio. Oh, you're muted. You did what I do.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so last comment. Thank you, Carter, for that update. And I would, in my opinion, I would suggest putting in this new policy two things. If you're the contact, if like you're the person that the staff member calls, that I think it's a good idea for you to be in the office that day to field any questions, especially since it's a privacy thing. I know you're part-time, but I would consider this sort of like a crisis management issue. So I don't know how, we would handle your part-time schedule. But I think this would call for, just based on, the severity of this and whether or not employees feel safe in the building or what's happening. I just that would be my first suggestion. And then the second thing is communication as soon as possible to all staff on what's going on, what's been done. So I don't think this is going to be the last time this is going to happen, unfortunately. So, and again, I just want to make sure that all employees all staff members are feeling safe and don't have questions on what's going on. And that seems to, from feedback I've received and the board has received, that's kind of came into play this week.
Just so you'll know, I do not intend to make myself the contact. We'll probably do that at the Board of Health staff level or the HR level. I would expect to be notified immediately if I was, whether I was in or outside the office, to make sure that any crisis management initiatives have been done. And yes, we will communicate it to all, which interesting brings up for some of those who raise the concern, there's a responsibility here that they also follow all of the rules. Interestingly, we had issued a directive last week that everyone wear face masks at all time as an added protection measure, and there've been some objections to that. So, we're certainly going to step up our efforts to make sure everyone's communicated with and hope that all employees will step up their efforts. Open windows, face masking or shields all the time, washing of hands, distancing, and the like. But we understand our responsibility to better communicate and hope that the staff understands they're an active part of protecting themselves and their fellow workers.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Roy?
I know you're working on this tomorrow. Can I just suggest that you reach out to the schools? It seems like they have had several instances of this happening since school has begun, and they kind of have it down pat where they have a generic email they send out to the whole district, so parents are notified immediately, and then they have an extra step layer where they contact the people who may have been in closer contact with the exposure. And it just seems to me that copy what works, right?
Sure.
All right. Thank you, Carter. Any other questions? Well, I know we're talking about an employee that was impacted by this. I know I believe I speak with the whole board and the community. We hope the very best for their speedy recovery, and understand this is very serious. And when we discuss those concerns, we read during the announcements. It's important that we try to do our best to mitigate this as leaders of our community. More importantly, other members do what they can to limit the spread of COVID-19. But I do want to say that we wish the employee very well and as for a speedy recovery. All right, Carter, did you have any other TA updates?
Just to provide some level of comfort, I did meet with BJ Harvey today. The price differential is considerable. Through it, but it's more on the order of $150, not $450 a year. He'll be back to me, and I'm confident we'll have that full package ready for you on December 8th for conversation. But while the number is not a welcome one because of the change in recycling, the commodity pricing, it is not what had been feared. And I just want to try to to the extent that's any comfort, I wanted to share that with you.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Okay. Thank you very much, Carter. If there isn't anything else, we're on the meeting minutes. So we have two sets of meeting minutes this evening, October 15th and October 29th.
I move the board vote to approve the October 15, 2020 meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Ms. Roy?
I feel these minutes are pretty light for the meeting that we had that day. These minutes that we're both approving tonight are both the logistic meetings that we had. This meeting lasted an hour and it's 1 page worth of minutes, and it doesn't include Mr. Conca announcing that we're going to be doing a consent agenda. It doesn't announce that he was concerned about costs. It doesn't announce that the conversation about Board of Health. It left out a lot of that conversation, whereas the following meeting minutes we're about to approve, that logistics meeting lasted half the amount of time and has 3 pages worth of minutes. So I just feel like this is a pretty light version for a pretty heavy meeting.
Ms. Roy, you have well, any one of us has the authority to make any adjustments to these meeting minutes. There are minutes, so we vote them in there. So if there's some amendments that you feel that you want to bring, or we can bring these back to have them, with some more detail, I leave that up to you who made the motion and whoever seconded. If they want to rescind it, that's up to you.
Well, I just saved it for the discussion part of this to see how everybody else felt. If I'm on an island, then I'm on an island. I just wanted to have the discussion. I did not bring an amendment, by the way, to add all of my concerns.
Okay, yeah, I'm just saying, and that goes for any member, by the way. So if you feel that there's something that needs to be added that you believe that should be, all we have to do is make the amendment and that'll happen. But is there any other questions or concerns anyone want to address or answer Ms. Roy's suggestion on the sets of meeting minutes?
Yeah, I now that she points it out, I kind of feel the same way. A lot of October sort of blended into for me together, so I did pick that up. And in the past, I've been guilty of not saying something about something that was missing from the meeting minutes, and I regretted it later. So probably the thing to do is to send this particular one back, have the minutes accurately reflect that conversation, because it was an important conversation and was talked about in the public, and it should be recorded in these minutes, and then have them brought back.
All right, so right at this point, I've got a motion made and seconded. Did the petitioner want to rescind the motion, and did the person who seconded want to agree to that? Or we go forward with a vote, we either vote yes or vote no. It's up to you.
You're the chair, whatever you'd like to do.
I'm not the one that made the motion. I'm just the referee
I
here.
guess we could just vote on it and I can vote no,
Mr. Fazio.
I just have a clarifying question. So in a case like this that we feel, or, a board member feels like, to Colleen's point, an hour and a half meeting, we've got 1 page of notes. Is it up to the board member to make the arguments and then send them back to staff? That's how we handle it? Or are we just giving it back to staff? Because I just don't want this going on and on and on, like, do we clarify this is what we're looking for? You need to capture this conversation or this meeting. How do we handle that? Unfortunate. So what's the best way to approach this, I guess, is my question.
So I think you have a couple of options. Okay, one is we bring the minutes to the meeting. We discuss if we feel they're adequate, great. If not, then that's a board decision. If they're not adequate, then what changes do need to be made? I think the board needs to make that decision. If there's something like super egregious, right, where name is misspelled or something is just completely the wrong or something like that. I mean, I would feel that any one of us could reach out to the recording secretary or assistant to the select board and just made mention saying, hey, is this right? Or did I not see, whatever it may be, and could make the correction that way as well. But I do believe that if, what's presented here, I think as a board, we have to either or a majority of us have to agree whether or not these are adequate, or majorities have to agree they're not adequate. What direction do we get back to make them adequate and then brought back to us for certification? So I think those are your two choices. But I don't think any one member, can make that determination without a majority of the board, which you can only do here at an open meeting. Mr. Frisbee.
Yeah, the problem here is one of accuracy. So, ordinarily when these come in, I'm looking for discrete items that I feel are either inaccurate or something that I know I said that is inaccurate in the meeting minutes. But when we're missing parts of an entire conversation, I don't have the wherewithal to sit here and be like, oh no, Dan Concost said this when Colleen said this, or when Dan Kusher said this, or however the conversation went. So I think the best thing to do in this situation would be to go back, review, and I'm sorry, but have staff review the recording. And then when it comes back, we can take a look. And, I'm sensitive to that concern. This isn't something, these are meeting minutes. This isn't something that we should be taking up staff's a lot of time with, but they do, we're voting on them. They do have to be accurate. So if they come back and there are additional changes to be made, and I hope there wouldn't be, just make those on the fly at that point. But at this point, there's too much.
All right, any other questions or comments on the motion to approve the meeting minutes? Mr. Often.
Yeah, I agree with the idea of sending it back and just adding for some additional context to some of the conversation. Because if you think about how the public is going to use meeting minutes, a lot of the way that people are going to use the meeting minutes is to determine if they're going to watch video or there's something they're interested in sort of researching that happened at a meeting. You want them to have enough content to be able to make that determination. And in this case, I think that's really the flavor that I would be looking for. Not a word by word transcription of what was happening, but more an accurate description of the flow of conversation and the topics for people to then go and refer to the video.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Fazio.
I'll just add that, we've talked a lot about guidelines tonight and new policies and such. So, this is something that I also maybe say and recommend. So we're not revisiting this over and over and we're cautious of how we're using staff hours, that, what Mr. Often just brought up should be taken into consideration for future meetings. And this, we are looking for content that the public can read and assess and understand. And so when these meetings are typed up, that's what the board's going to be looking for.
Any other questions or comments? All right, I have a couple things here. So, these meetings are recorded for video, and I know, meeting minutes should, truly reflect. I will acknowledge when there's more than a few of us in the Zoom meetings and, in meetings, it's really hard to capture all of the key points. So I want to say I can appreciate the challenge, and I think that it's within our purview to definitely ask to, bring back with additional clarification based on the commentary that took place during that week. So I do want to say that, because we record the meetings too, and I see your point, Mr. Often. I mean, we do have the agenda that's outlined, and I know the meeting minutes, cover sort of the details, like after the agenda, what decisions were made, who made what motion, and so on and so forth. This was more of like a general discussion, and I think it's really, I want to say, someone who has been a clerk on many committees, it's challenging. Okay, and I just want to acknowledge that we don't hire recording secretaries, okay, or court reporters, and that if we're going to send back, to your point, Ms. DeFazio, what are the guidelines? I mean, is there something in specific that you want to see in the meeting minutes that are reflected? We get these ahead of time. I would ask that we try to maybe head this off at the pass a little bit, or we come here at a meeting, and I mean, this is the most we've ever discussed meeting minutes, right? So I feel that, before we take the vote, that, if we say no, I'm going to go back to, our assistant and say, I need you to add more detail to these, please. How do you tell someone that?
You can just give the example for the other meeting minutes that we were approving tonight for October 29th, which is the other logistics meeting that we had, which has the exact detail that we're looking for this same night on October 15th.
All right. I will do that. Is there anything other question, comment before I take a vote? Okay, so we're voting to approve the meeting minutes. That's the motion. All those by roll. Oh, Mr. Fazio, sorry.
No, sorry, Peter. Thanks. No, I just wanted to make one more comment. I mean, I'm kind of standing in this place where I, as a member of this board, it's important to me that meeting minutes are clear and concise, and that we are obviously, we approve them for a reason. So we wouldn't be voting on them if, it wasn't in our purview to change them. But I also want to make mention, we all know that we're really, really short-staffed in that office. And so, and had a lot going on in the month of October. So I'm also just want to communicate that I'm very sensitive to staff's time, particularly now. So I don't want to make this a habit, and that's why I said it would be great to have some guidelines or have us be the ones that amend it and send it back if we want to, because staff's got a lot on their plate right now, and we're cranking a lot of things out, and like I said, I want to recognize that.
Okay, if there's any discussion, please, Mr. Often,
Often nay.
Mr. Fazio,
DeFazio, nay.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, nay.
Mr. Prisby,
Nay.
Peter Carlson, nay. All right, I will send that back. Next up, we have meeting minutes for October 29th.
I move the board vote to approve the October 29th, 2020 meeting minutes as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion made and second. Any discussion on the meeting minutes? Okay, seeing none. All those by roll call, please. Mr. Often,
Often aye.
Mr. Fazio,
Fazio, aye.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, I.
Mr. Prisby,
Frisbee, aye.
Peter Carlson, I declare the motion carried 5-0. Thank you. All right, so last on our agenda here, just recall, I gave we have library building project and Upton Street RFP. We had an update on the election audit from town administrators. We're looking for some completion there. Is there anything else that the board feels that we should put on here? I know we talked about cannabis tonight, but that'll be on a future agenda. And then if we have to develop some tasks for us to kind of keep track of, we could do so maybe at the conclusion of that meeting. But does anyone have anything that they want to add?
Can we add trash on there?
Trash
Please.
recycling, yep. Okay. Anything else? All right. So before we adjourn, I just want to let you know we do not have a meeting scheduled for next week. Can you imagine that?
What? How could that happen? Slacker.
I know, right? But I wanted to take this opportunity and wish all of you a happy Thanksgiving, safe holiday. Please, everyone in the community, stay safe, stay healthy, do what you can to help protect everybody else. And thank you very much for all your work, and look forward to catching up with you December 1st. And at that point, take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. By roll call, please. Mr. Often,
Often aye.
Mr. Fazio,
Fazio, aye.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, I.
Mr. Prisby,
Frisbee, aye.
Peter Carlson, aye. Okay, declare motion carried. Thank you. Have a great night, everybody.